The Road to Rediscovery is sponsored by BetterHelp. Let me ask you something. Is there something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? For me growing up, feelings of anxiety, inadequacy, doubt, and even imposter syndrome got in the way of me reaching my goals and reaching my full potential, right? So, BetterHelp addresses these and more. It's not a crisis line and it's not self help, it's professional therapy done securely online. BetterHelp will assess your needs and match you with your own licensed professional therapist. You can log into your account anytime and send a message to your therapist. You'll get timely and thoughtful responses, plus, you can schedule weekly video or phone sessions so you won't have to ever sit in an uncomfortable waiting room as with traditional therapy. It's more affordable than traditional offline therapy, and get this, financial aid is even available. BetterHelp wants you to start living a happier life today. They mean it. Visit betterhelp.com/road to rediscovery. That's better, H-E-L-P, and join the over 1 million people taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. And there's a special offer for our Road to Rediscovery listeners. Get 10% off your first month when you register at betterhelp.com/road to rediscovery. We're all on this journey of life together, and it sure feels good to know professional help is within our reach with BetterHelp. Again, that's better, H-E-L-P. Thanks to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Our lives are laid out on a road of bumps, turns, struggles, and more. How do we respond? How do we endure adversity for learning and growth? I'm Aubrey Johnson, and we'll explore these questions and more on the Road to Rediscovery. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Road to Rediscovery. I'm your host, Aubrey Johnson, and I'm so glad that you're here with me today. The Road to Rediscovery is about reflecting on life lessons to learn and grow from them, and of course, pay it forward and take it to the next level by helping others who are struggling through dark times. Now, as you know, on the Road to Rediscovery, we are very passionate about delivering quality content that is of value to you and your personal growth. If you like what you hear and you wish to support, please visit roadtorediscovery.com/donate. That's road, the number 2, rediscovery.com/donate. We'll give you a shout out in a future episode. And as always, there is no obligation. We are truly grateful for your listenership. Now, as we know, this time of year, school is almost out for the summer and the vacation season is upon us, right? For the most part, that means traveling to that family favorite vacation spot or perhaps somewhere new and adventurous. Why do we go on these vacations? Well, we go for the change of scenery. We go to relax. We go for fun activities. But guess what? We also go for the food. That's right, the food. My special guest has combined his love for food and travel. He's the founder and CEO of Ask Chef Dentist Productions, and through his blog has shared his amazing experiences with scores of dishes from around the world. Furthermore, his recipes and cooking tips has helped millions feed their friends and families with easy-to-make restaurant-style dishes at a fraction of the cost. Ladies and gentlemen, let's welcome Mr. Dennis Littley to the show. Hey, Dennis, welcome to the show. It's so great to have you.
Well, thank you, Aubrey. Thank you so much for having me. That's quite a welcome there. I haven't had applause in a long time.
Yeah, that's the dedicated, committed listeners of the Road to Rediscovery.
I love it. I love it. It's a good way to start things off.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So for the listeners' benefit, Dennis, if you can just share with us, kind of like the chicken or the egg, right?
Mhm.
Which came first for you, travel or cuisine?
Oh, cuisine, definitely.
Nice.
Cuisine was always something that I was very passionate about. And I always say it's because I love to eat.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely love to eat. So there was a marriage that just made in heaven because my love for food and I was actually enjoyed cooking.
Yeah.
I started at an early age, and I learned right away that me being able to cook meant that I got to eat. So,
Yes.
my mother was a nurse and she would work nights, so she slept during the days, and
Mhm.
I tried to let her sleep most of the time. I was not a good kid, but I started to cook, and
Uh-huh.
it just blossomed in me, and it was something that I love to do. And travel, I was referred to as the accidental travel blogger. I
Really?
was, yeah, I was invited. A friend of mine, when I had
Mhm.
just moved to the Orlando area, said,
Mhm.
this hotel is looking for bloggers to come and help them, and I was like, yeah, I'm not a travel blogger. She goes, oh no, go apply. They'll love to have you.
Yeah.
So I went, and I'm looking out from the third floor, which was not their best room. I got their last room.
Okay.
They hadn't renovated that high up yet, but they had put in 9-foot sliding glass doors that open to the ocean.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
I stood there and I'm going, I can do this. It
Yeah.
started to click. So then, I started traveling and writing about
Mhm.
places. And the more I wrote about them, the more places people sent me.
Mhm.
And I was writing about, and I would tell them, I'm not just going to write about your destination. People
Yeah.
already know what's here, why they're coming. I need to write about the food and the craft breweries and the distilleries. And
Yes.
so that kind of cemented myself into becoming a food related travel blogger. So
I
that was
see.
my niche.
I see. I see. Amazing, man. Absolutely amazing. So, um, very unique niche. Well, I
Yeah.
guess redundant, but still, it's a very good niche to be in because it's two passions that most people, if not all people, love, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I always told my friends, I says, everyone eats, everyone has to eat,
Hmm.
so that's a market right there. And
Hmm.
everyone wishes they could travel. So those are two
Yes.
markets.
Yes. Yes. And so over time, as you become this accidental travel food blogger, uh, how long does it take before the word gets around? That hey, and I'm not talking about with the followers, and maybe it starts with the followers, but I'm talking about the organizations in which you traveled for and wrote about or wrote for. Like you said, you're not just writing about the destinations, but you're talking about the food, the
Yeah.
breweries, the restaurants, and so
Yeah.
forth.
Well, it took some work. Everybody says,
Hmm.
"Oh, wow, you have such a great life." I do. I have a great life.
Hmm.
But, they don't understand how much work goes into producing. They see me out having a good time, and
Right.
I do. I have a great time.
Hmm.
My wife jokes about every time I eat, it's the best meal I've ever had because I get so into it. Then later on, I
Yeah.
can I can pick it apart a little, but I usually don't. If they
Hmm.
tried hard and it's good, I'm happy. Um,
Hmm. Hmm.
but it took the followers, and I think I became as popular as a travel blogger because I had a huge following with my food side.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I was made to succeed. And where most travel bloggers did not, well, first of all, if they had a website, it wasn't very pretty.
Okay.
That wasn't their thing. That's just when
Yeah.
people used to write for magazines, and then they started writing for online things. So they weren't as concerned about their own property. And so they
Hmm.
didn't have that. And followers, they never even thought about that.
Wow. Yeah.
So I,
Yeah.
I had a million followers on Google Plus.
Nice. A
I
million.
a million. I had over a million followers on Google Plus before it shut down,
Mhm,
and I had a good following on all the other social media. So
mhm,
I'd go in
mhm.
there with a million and a half or a million and three quarters followers and just blow people away.
Wow. So, I and that leads me to think that maybe, like in your case, it started with the followers, right? Having those followers, having that audience of that size, right? That can capture the eyes of a lot of travel and tourism boards
Oh yeah.
throughout the world, I would imagine,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely. They
Yeah.
even got me to speak at the governor's conference on tourism in Florida. I'd only been here a few years,
Oh, wow.
but I made friends with this person on Twitter
Hmm.
who I thought was this some housewife, not to demean housewives, I love them, but I mean,
Right, right.
some housewife who had an account who was having a great time in Florida as much as I was.
Hmm.
And it
Hmm.
turned out she was a PR person for a marketing firm. And we became friends. And before, I didn't know who she was, and she goes, "How would you like to speak at the governor's conference on tourism?" I'm like, "Yeah, are you drinking again?"
Right.
So I did, and I went to Tampa, and I was on a panel and spoke in front of a bunch of people about how I did traveling and how I what the whole basis behind being a travel blogger, and how you talk about pay it forward. I always give them more than they bargain for. And that's
Yes.
not just in travel, that's in everything I do. If they ask
Hmm.
me for 6 posts, for 6 social media posts, they're going
Yeah.
to get 10 or 15.
Gotcha.
They're
Yeah.
just going to push it out because I love doing it. So that
Hmm.
again is something that has kind of endeared me to people.
Very nice. Exceeding expectations for sure.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, without a doubt. So, I have a strange question here,
sure.
but when y- we've all heard the old adage when it comes to like combining, a good combination, between food and drink, right?
Mhm.
If you're going for red meat, you want a red wine. If you go for chicken or fish, maybe a white wine, and so forth. Have you ever found yourself in your writings kind of recommending a certain meal or dish as you take in a landmark specific to that area? Like, I don't know, if you're on an outdoor cafe, right across from the Leaning Tower of Pisa,
Mhm.
what's a good dish or cuisine to dine on in that area, while taking in that view? I mean, is
Sure.
does anything like that come up?
Oh, absolutely. There's always local food that is a must to try.
Yeah.
I actually was in Pisa, and we did eat a little cafe. I honestly don't remember what their local food was though, because it was on my wife and I's second trip we ever did in 1999
Okay.
when we were there. But
Right.
talking about that, we were in Portugal and we were in Porto, and one of the dishes was this squid ink linguine with garlic shrimp.
Mm,
And we were in this little hole in the wall cafe,
yeah.
and everybody was going in there to get stuff. And I said, I'm going to try some food here. And I ordered that, and we ordered something else. My wife she didn't like the looks of it. She didn't like it. I said, oh, good, because it was delicious.
Really?
And I woofed that down. So, yeah, when you're in different areas, like I was in Barcelona,
Yeah.
and they wanted me, and I have a rule: when someone puts food in front of me, I would
Mhm.
at least be gracious enough to try it.
Yes,
I will
yes.
never say, "Oh, I don't eat that."
Right,
Even
right.
if I'm thinking that, I'm going to try it, and I'm going to try and enjoy it. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not a big octopus fan because I rarely have had it done well.
Okay.
And they sent out this grilled octopus that, oh my God, it was just cooked so simply, seasoned. I don't know what they seasoned it with and whether they cooked it over a wood burning grill, but
Yeah.
I found myself in love with octopus. They brought out this huge freaking tentacle, and I'm going, oh my God.
Really?
Yeah, but I ate it,
Yeah?
and then it was just delicious. And then while I was in Barcelona, also, they took me out to a shrimping boat, and
Mhm.
they had just brought their haul in, and I'm on the boat, touring the boat, looking around, and then they set up a grill, and they're grilling some of the shrimp they just caught for me.
Beautiful. It
Oh,
doesn't get any fresher than that, does it?
no, it's
Yeah.
just yeah. So and as a chef, like, I get in places that a lot of people don't. Like, when we were
Okay.
in Madrid, they took me back to this restaurant, and that had been there since 15 something.
Mm.
And their specialty was baby pig heads. And
Oh my
they
gosh.
had them lined up on trays around this huge old wood burning oven.
Yeah.
And nobody got to see that. It was like, I don't know when that was built, but it was old.
Oh, oh, I bet it's been around for a while.
Yeah,
15, so oh my
yeah,
goodness.
yeah. That's a difference with Europe. We see things in the States, and it's since 1967.
Yeah.
and
Right.
I was in this town in France, and they had this old truck, and it said since 1542.
Yeah. Now it really puts into perspective what is old, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. And
Yeah.
we have things hundreds of year old, and they have things centuries.
Oh,
That's
of
the difference.
course.
That's the difference.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. So, you mentioned earlier, Dennis, about uh, having an open mind and being gracious enough to try whatever's put in front of you if someone asks you to have a bite.
Sure.
And you also mentioned about you know not the not so much the importance, but what you try to do typically when you are in an area is to try a dish that is popular or
Oh
common to
yeah,
the area, right? So,
absolutely.
in all your travels, have you ever went to a place where you were pleasantly surprised of a cuisine or dish that
Yeah.
may not have been common to the area?
That was not common to the area. I had my first taste of real Chinese food in Paris.
Really?
Yeah, and it was shocking. It was because what we get here, folks, let me tell you,
Yeah, yeah.
it ain't Chinese.
No.
So we were tired. Well, my wife was tired of eating French food. I rarely get tired of eating French food, but she was. So
Right.
she wanted something different. So I said, all right, let's try Chinese. We like
Uh-huh.
Chinese. Well, she went back to the French food the next day.
Oh,
But
did she really?
yeah, now it was good, but it was just not kind of what you expected.
Mm,
It was, it's
I
what
see.
because in foreign countries they'll make food that is closer to what they really eat.
Oh, of course.
In the States, just like Italian food, there's so many dishes that we love. Like you'll never get a chicken parm in Italy. I
No.
mean, somebody will make it for you, but I'm telling you, you're never going to find it on the menu. There's things that we eat that you're just never going to see because when the immigrants came over, they worked with what they had
Yeah.
and things just blossomed. They cultivated their culture and injected American items into it and built things based on their knowledge. And that's how food kind of evolves. Now, Italian American food is wonderful. Italian food is wonderful. They
Yes.
they cross over on certain points, but
Yes.
not on all of them.
You bring up a very interesting point, Chef Dennis, because and you've given me some insight that's really enlightened me. And here's what I mean by that. Um, for so long, especially I'll use my example, living in North Dallas, okay, there's Mexican food and there's Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
And in a lot of cases, it's tougher than you think to find a true authentic Mexican restaurant, even in Texas, right? Because Tex-Mex is so densely populated. I mean, throughout so many restaurants, here, and so I think the Tex-Mex is kind of like the Mexican food has become quote Americanized, and I always had an impression of Americanized food that came from another country as just uh, a way that, let's say, Italian,
Hmm.
a way that the Italians would make the food to appeal to Americans. And the insight that you shared is that that's not the case necessarily, but it's working with what you have as the immigrants came over here from the old country. Is that is
Hmm.
that is that right?
I think so. And a prime
Yeah.
example of it is I grew up on Tex-Mex.
Uh-huh.
You feed me real Mexican food, and
Hmm.
I'm like, I'm not always happy
Yeah.
because I'm half Mexican, but my grandmother lived in Texas a good portion of her life, and
Hmm.
that's where it comes in with the different ingredients and the different quality of food. Like my mother always said that we ate pinto beans. That was
Yeah.
it. The poorer Mexicans ate black beans.
Oh yeah.
We had rice that had tomato in it. They had plain rice or yellow rice.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a cultural difference too in terms of quality of ingredients. And I think when they came to the United States, meats were more available.
Right.
And again, and you're feeding who are you in Texas? Who are you feeding? You're feeding cowboys.
Yes, you are.
You're
That's right.
feeding hungry, hungry cowboys. So you better make the food hearty. You better make it tasty, and
Yep.
you better make it plentiful.
Stick to the ribs. Stick
Yeah.
to the ribs.
Yes. So I think that's kind of how, and California Mexican's almost the same, I think, as Tex-Mex to some
Uh-huh.
degree. You get the same kind of crossover. And again, it was the same type of influence where you have a little bit more money, you have a little bit better
Right.
ingredients. And it always
Right.
comes down to ingredients. Italians, through all their different regions, they eat a lot differently. I think as
Mhm.
a country, they're probably like the United States is very diverse too. And we have
Yeah, yeah.
different states have different things. But
Hmm.
Italy's about the same too, because every region, if it's closer to a different country, has that influence. Or the
Gotcha.
South is more olive oil. The North has all the cattle, so they have cream and cheese. It's just
Hmm. Hmm.
culturally different, but they're the one culture I know that uses everything, every piece of the animal. And if
Really?
you ever watch Stanley Tucci and see some of the things he's eating, you'll see, oh my God, yeah, they were eating. I was watching him the other week, and he's eating some kind of brains, and
Oh my goodness.
just it's there. They do not waste a part of an animal.
No, wow, wow.
Yeah,
So, hey, there's some efficiency behind that,
yeah,
and also, I don't know, environmentally friendly.
yeah.
Yeah, if you're gonna process an animal, I guess.
Use the whole thing.
Yeah, yeah, and they're very creative in the dishes they make using all those different parts, as well, it
Yeah,
sounds like.
yeah.
Man, that's awesome. So, uh, you mentioned something regarding, like, in Mexico, pinto beans,
Hmm.
was a common, type of beans, and the poor Mexicans had black beans. Have you noticed in wherever you travel, has there been, um, a certain type of food that has, that had a connotation or a history of the lower economic level of those citizens, those residents, that was common amongst them, but has become a delicacy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Oh yeah, just think of tacos.
yeah,
Think of how we have elevated the lowly street taco to now we're paying $8 for a fish taco, or
yeah. You're right.
for one fish taco,
Yeah.
or you think about the Irish, and Ireland was the country that surprised me the most, because when they
Hmm.
invited me over, they said, "We want you to come to Ireland to dispel the myth that the Irish don't know how to eat." And I'm like, okay, I can do that.
Yeah, yeah.
And from the first meal there to the last meal there, I have never eaten so good.
Really.
Food was just phenomenal. What we call farm to table is simply dinner.
Hmm.
It's just
Hmm.
they know where everything comes from. That's where I learned to love lamb. Actually, I was not a lamb eater,
Mm,
and I had lamb done so many different ways.
really.
And again, so you talk about food, like Ireland's a prime example with like the poor food, like boxties, these little things
Yeah,
that they make it for lunch, or the meat pies that they used to make,
yeah.
things that the coal miners would take in to work with them that they could eat, or
Uh-huh.
which are now are fashionable.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
just just make a soup. Soup was, let's see what scraps we have so we can make a meal.
yeah, yeah.
And now you go into restaurants who have these premier soups that are always the same, that they make, that they specialize in.
Mhm.
We've taken a lot of, and honestly, common food, peasant food
Yeah.
is the best. You know, it really is when you come down to it. They're doing something with nothing and making it taste really good. So you give it to someone who has a little more skill and maybe has some other ingredients that can add into it, and
Sure, sure.
you got something magical then. So they take all these uh, inexpensive dishes, just even like the lowly hamburger.
Yeah, yeah.
Who would have thought we've turned it into such a gourmet item on every menu? I had the best hamburger of my life in Paris.
In Paris. Another
Paris.
surprise.
Another. We had been on the road for almost 5 weeks, and
Yeah,
damn, I wanted something American.
yeah.
I mean, I love eating all the different cuisines, but I said, I just need a burger. And
Yeah,
they
yeah.
weren't happy to have us in there. This was one of the few times where they were not happy French people. Usually
Okay.
they get over it when they see you're not an ignorant American.
Right.
But they just weren't happy. But it almost mooed at me when it came out. It was so rare.
Really?
It was so good. And that's again the difference in meats. Like, we can eat things rare there that we would never dream of eating rare here, in Europe,
Interesting.
because of how they raise the animals. And
Sure, sure. Yeah.
I eat like a fool over there, and I never gain weight. There's just don't have the
Mhm.
additives and things. They don't have all that extra sugar,
Oh,
I
yeah,
think.
preservatives and all that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's more of a purity food. So there's a big difference there.
Amazing. Wow, that's really surprising, and, farm to table seems commonplace in a lot of areas.
It
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the most literal sense, right?
Mhm.
I
Oh, yeah.
mean, yeah, yeah.
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 I've had restaurants say, "Yeah, we're gonna what did you want? We're gonna send someone down to get this kind of cheese for you. The guy down the street makes it,"
Oh,
or,
wow.
it's
Yeah.
just great. We were at a villa in Tuscany, and we didn't feel like going out, so we stayed behind while the rest of the group went out.
Mhm.
And the owner of the villa we were at says, "Would you like to eat with us?" She put us at a separate table. I would have eaten with a family happily,
Yeah.
but she put us at a separate table and fed us this beautiful spread of meats and cheeses and breads and
Oh,
olives. And
so nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
it was
so
just uh,
so nice.
hospitality.
Yeah.
It's just pure hospitality.
Yeah, yeah, and there's such a deep connection when it comes to just interacting with uh, friends and family, people who are close to you, or people you just meet. When you have something in common, such as good food
Yeah.
and a good atmosphere, right?
Well, food is what binds us. Food is
It
what
does.
we can you can bring people together from every country on earth and set them
Hmm.
at a dinner table,
Hmm.
and they'll be laughing. They won't understand each other a lot, but they'll be laughing and enjoying themselves and walk away as friends, a lot of them, because food does that.
Hmm.
Good food just brings us together, and because we're all the same people, and sometimes it takes something like food to make us realize that.
Agreed, 100%, 100%. One particular type of food that I feel brings people together, but I guess you have to have an acquired taste for it. I'm a huge fan of Creole
Oh yeah.
and New Orleans style food. Just the crawfish, the etouffee, all of that good. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh, my mouth just waters thinking about it. And I've been to Louisiana quite a few times and had, that authentic, at least I think authentic in
Mhm.
the restaurants there. And I see people come together, and I see them come together whenever there's food, no matter what kind of food. But
Yeah.
I see a true bond, a bond of just being, light, lively,
Mhm.
good vibes and that sort of thing amongst people enjoying some good Cajun food.
Oh
It's
yeah.
in my experience.
Yeah, and there's a difference between Creole and Cajun.
Yes,
There
there
is a
is.
and you'll get more of the Creole in New Orleans. I'm trying to remember if I have it backwards or not, but one is more New Orleans style, and the other, I think, Cajun is as you go out more.
Yeah, agreed.
Um, but yeah, yeah. When you said etouffee, I remember the first time I heard somebody say, "I'll have some of that etouffee,"
Love it.
and I heard the waitress say, "Well, you're going to have to pronounce it correctly before I bring it to you."
There you go. I love
Uh,
that.
but yeah, oh yeah, great, and it's a great city too. It's
It
again
is.
all that it's been through, and it's resilient, and it's still the people are still
Yeah,
friendly and happy, and
they are. They
yeah,
are.
good hospitality. And I think a lot of it. I don't want to say it's a Southern thing,
Hmm.
but I think a lot of it has to do with the Southern mentality of hospitality opposed to the northern kind of ideology of more of a fast-paced living. Because even if you don't like someone, if you don't invite them in for a sweet tea,
Hmm.
you're not being a good host.
Right.
You still have to make the effort and invite them. Bless their hearts.
Yeah,
Um,
that's right. Bless their hearts.
uh, but even you would never be rude to not invite someone in for a sweet tea, glass of tea. It's just
No.
something they do, so it's built in. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was really surprised. I've only been to New Orleans once.
Hmm.
I was actually born in Louisiana.
Oh, nice.
I was born at an army base at Fort
Yeah.
Polk
Fort Polk.
before we moved to San Antonio.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
And Yeah, I think I became a Texan. I was only like 9 months old when we moved, and my mother says she's a Texan. She said they put something in the water there, so you're always a Texan after that point. Uh,
Oh,
but
that's funny.
but
That's funny. I
yeah.
love it here, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah. Texas is truly home for me now. My wife and I moved here 7 years ago from, through my job,
mhm.
and absolutely love it here. So yeah, I think this is where I'll stay for a while.
I do. I like Florida. I really do. I love the blue
Hmm.
skies and the
Hmm.
sunshine. it's getting so crazy crowded though.
Oh, I
Um,
believe it.
we're
Yeah.
gonna move a little north next year. We're just put our house up for sale here, and we
Hmm.
have a house in New Jersey that we got last year. So my wife's very happy because she's closer to her family and her friends. But
Oh,
I
good.
I can't take the winters.
No,
I just
winters are, yeah, yeah.
winters
They
are
get brutal up there.
yeah. So I said we have to. And I had said Texas. I said,
Hmm.
she goes, well, where do you want to go besides Florida? I says, well, we could always go to Texas.
That's right.
You know, that is home.
Thank you.
So she's not quite sold on it, but I may have to run
No.
her over to Galveston or Padre Island or Corpus Christi or somewhere. And
Yeah, I think Rockport is a pretty
yep,
decent place too, right?
yep.
Yeah, no, for sure. So, Dennis, when you are, say, you're in the midst of enjoying a delicious meal at one of the exciting places that you visited, um, how does how, how does how does the inspiration of the words and the the vivid descriptions to articulate the texture and the taste and how it was prepared, I mean, when it does it pop into your head as you eat and then you have a notepad, or do you all keep it all in your head and then after the meal you kind of recap, or how does that happen?
I I take pictures of everything.
Okay.
I mean, I have a little camera that I use specifically, and I figured out how to use it with almost no light when we were in Ireland. We were in this really dark restaurant, and I
Hmm.
ended up using my phone for light, but placement of it is very important so you don't get glare and get all this
Sure.
ugly pictures.
Yeah.
So I would get these really great pictures using this little camera and my phone. And I take pictures of everything. If the light's good, I mean, I just constantly take pictures. So I remember my wife says, she'll say, remember when we were in Rome in 1998? I says, yeah, and we ate at that place by the Spanish Cafe, and I had the bronzino, and you had the, and she goes, how do you remember that?
Uh-huh.
It's just nuts. So I tend to remember, at least so far I have, thank God. We'll see how as I get older how my memory holds up. But I
Yeah.
even do that when I'm creating food and at home
Mhm,
for my blog, as I
mhm.
will put it together. And more lately, I have been writing down at least a base recipe.
Right.
I'll print it out. I start a blog post and I put the ingredients down. I won't always put amounts down. I
Mhm.
print it out, then I take it out to me, and then I'll make corrections on it as I'm cooking.
Gotcha.
Or if I use too much of something, I will cut it back. I won't necessarily, as long as it still looks good,
Yeah.
pictures happening, I know what I did wrong. All these years of experience, I know what I did wrong. So
Right.
this same thing kind of goes when I'm out and I'm taking pictures. And like I
Mhm.
said, at the time I'm eating something, I'm just enjoying life
Mm.
more than
Very nice.
more than you could humanly think possible.
Very nice.
And later on, when I'm sitting, or the next day when I look at the picture, I go, yeah, that was really good, but that sauce needed just a little more flavor. It needed,
Mhm,
might have needed a
mhm.
little more salt, or it needed a little pepper, or it needed a little basil, or, then the things will come and then I'll tie it together. And then when I
Okay.
write a post, I tell people, I didn't know how to, I wasn't a travel blogger. I'm definitely not a travel writer. I'm not,
Mhm.
I'm not a magazine writer. I'm not going to give you the great American novel. I'm writing my experiences. So
Right.
what I do is, like, with pictures worth a thousand words, I take my pictures, I comb through them and I correct them and make them look nice, and then I just try to decide what I'm going to use, and I'll pop a picture up and then I write about the picture.
Beautiful.
I think that's enough. Okay, now I pop another picture up and I write about the picture.
Right, right.
So that kind of gets things flowing, and then something will come in my mind and I'll interject something else into it. I had a guy pay me one of the most offhanded compliments. We did a trip, and I forget where it was to, but he says, you visited 4 UNESCO sites and all you wrote about was the food. And he goes, admittedly, I was very hungry after I got done reading your post. But he goes, I can't believe you didn't mention the UNESCO sites. And I was like, exactly.
Right.
Everyone that goes there knows those UNESCO sites are there, but
Mhm.
they don't know what you can eat.
Right, from the popular, areas
Yeah.
to the small local mom and pop type restaurants, right?
Yeah, or what kind of dish is specialized, like you were asking, specialties of the areas, what to look
Right.
for,
Right.
different things. Like in Portugal, it was those little tarts they have that everyone has. It's just you look for things. It's just
Yeah.
it's just fun.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. So, have you ever left a city or a country wishing you tried a certain dish? And was that inspiration to return one day?
Hmm. I don't know if there was anything I wished I had tried that I didn't try. I
Hmm.
wished I had eaten more of it. Uh,
Okay.
I wished I'd had an opportunity to go back because that's the hard thing. You go to a restaurant
Yeah.
and it's just amazing.
Hmm.
And you
Hmm.
wanna go back the next night, but you can't. You have to go try something new.
Right.
You
Right.
you can't eat at the same place all week even though you want to, because
You want to, right?
there's so many things on the menu that you wanna try,
Yeah.
so, that's really hard, but you have to kinda so I can't say I'm trying to think if there's anything I can't say there's nothing that I wanna try. I end up trying a lot more things than I ever would've because, again, people take me out.
Right. Right.
Again, when we were in Madrid, the city had sent me on a tour, a food tour,
Hmm.
and the guy was so excited that was taking me out because he had gotten permission to get me, oh god, barnacles.
Barnacles.
Yes,
Oh my gosh.
barnacles are crazy expensive because
Yeah.
they're on the rocks. And
Yep.
so when the water goes out, you got to scrape them off. And then when the water starts to come back in before you're thrashed against the rocks, you got to get out.
Oh, wow.
So it's like in, out, scrape the barnacle, scrape the barn. So they were like
Yeah.
really expensive. And he was so, and again, he gave them to me and I says, all right, let's try these. I had about three or four of them or five of them. And
Yeah.
they're kind of like snails. If I could
Are
equate
they?
it, if I could equate it to anything, it was
Yeah.
not something that I was going into a restaurant the next day and say, hey, do you have barnacles?
Right. You're not going out of your way for, yeah.
No, but I was glad I tried them. But
Yeah.
I've had so many different varieties of oysters.
Mm.
In
Hmm.
Ireland,
Love
Dennis,
oysters.
Dennis, try this. It tastes like the sea. And I'm like,
Oh, really?
oh my God, it did taste like the sea. He goes, all right, now try this one. It's milky. And it's like, oh, so it's like, yeah, they just keep handing you food and alcohol. That's another thing.
Right, right. Especially
I
in Ireland, I would imagine.
Oh, Ireland, Italy, France. I've been hammered at lunchtime more times than I care to think about.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. We're opening bottles of prosecco. We went to a vineyard and he opened like 8 bottles of wine, and we just stumbled into this place, and he was just so happy to see us and talk to us,
Wow.
and we appreciated him.
Yes.
And we bought a couple bottles, but that wasn't his goal.
No.
He was honestly having a good time.
Yeah, yeah. Like you said
And
before, hospitality.
yeah, and
Yeah,
that's what you got to do when you feed people too, or
yeah,
when you feed yourself. I
yeah.
tell people the biggest struggle with cooking is you try to make food that you don't really like to eat
Mhm.
because someone told you that you have to try this recipe, or someone told you that this recipe has to be made this way,
Mm.
or you should eat this because it's good for you. You know. I start with something you really enjoy eating. I always tell people, for me, it would be starting with chicken parm.
Okay.
I love chicken parm. Me and Peyton Manning got that in common. We
Oh,
love
yeah.
chicken parm. And I will gauge new Italian restaurants on how well they make chicken parm, because if they
Mhm.
screw that up, they're not going to make something difficult. It's
Right, right. No, they're not. Yeah.
so if you make something that you really like to eat and the end results are really good and you're happy, next time you go in the kitchen, you're going to be a little happier with yourself, and
That's right.
you're going to cook some more, and then you'll start to come out of your comfort zone a little bit after you're confident and after you've really enjoyed, and your significant other or your kids or your friends are going, wow, I didn't know you could cook. It's like, and then you start having fun with them in the kitchen, and
Yeah,
it
yeah.
becomes again a bonding place for people,
Right,
and the
right.
enjoyment is there, and the quality of life increases, and you're spending, maybe, I always tell people, I'll spend like 3 hours making dinner, Thanksgiving dinner, and we eat it in 15 minutes. It's like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, all that time that you're spent working together in the kitchen is good quality time too, even if you don't sit around the table for 2 hours
Yeah,
to eat, like
yeah.
the French or the Italians do.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it's still good quality of time.
Yeah, yeah, no, it certainly is, and that's that equity, right? That when you're bonding with loved ones, close ones, good friends,
Yeah,
not just eating but
yeah,
cooking.
yeah,
So yeah, that's great.
yeah. It's
So okay, go ahead.
no, I said you tell stories.
Yeah.
You relate things from your past, like
Hmm.
you're telling someone. Like I would talk about what my grandmother would make for me and different things, or my
Right.
mother never liked to cook until she after she retired. She didn't retire until she was almost 80.
Oh wow. Okay.
Then she started cooking. I was like, ah, she enjoyed it. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's all part of the whole experience.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and totally believe it is part of the experience. So speaking of
Mhm.
experiences, Chef Dennis, as you reflect on your many experiences, all your different travels, the many interesting people you've met, and the very unique and interesting cuisine that you've had at these places, um, what if what is one thing you can say you truly learned about yourself or people in general? Um, uh, with everything the world has to offer, with such beautiful scenery and cuisine, what have you learned about yourself and other people?
About myself, I've learned that I needed to take time and listen to
Hmm.
people because they had something to say.
Hmm.
Where when I was in the kitchen working, there was never time to listen. There was never time. I missed out on so many great stories.
Mm.
Um,
Hmm.
there was one point we were actually in Italy, and the troop went off to go walk through the woods, and Chef Dennis doesn't feel like walking through the woods today.
Right.
Yeah, I'm going to sit here at the table. Well, as soon as they left with the owner of this bed and breakfast, there was an
Hmm.
older Italian gentleman.
Hmm.
He came over and sat with me and started talking to me. And I'm thinking, oh God, what fresh hell have I entered into?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's talking to me, and I said, I don't understand much Italian. And I don't speak much Italian. And he just shook his head and nodded. And I'm going, and he's starting to talk to me, and I'm listening to the stories, and I'm watching the expressions, and he'd laugh, and we talk, and I started to understand what he was telling me through facial expressions, through mannerisms, through the
Yeah.
few words I could pick up. And I'm going, oh God, I wish I understood everything he said because these stories
Yeah.
he's telling me about when he was in the army in Sicily and I got the colonel was not a very good man.
Okay.
He was the colonel, oh, and the lieutenant, oh, but
Yeah. Yeah.
the colonel was not a very. So I got these, and I'm thinking, oh, this man is a wealth. And we were talking about his
Hmm.
daughter-in-law, and how she was growing roses and made all these rose liquids and flour and soaps and rose
Yeah.
scented things. And
Yeah.
I could understand enough to say, she wanted to open this B&B and do this. And I just looked at him and went, nah, I
Right.
shrugged and go, nah, what are you going to do? And he just shook his head like,
You
yeah,
say that.
he
Yeah.
understood. Um, yeah, and it was just such a great, unexpected conversation. And as soon as they came back, he just got up and went and sat by himself again.
Oh, did he?
And I'm thinking, oh, that's sad.
Yeah.
I wish I could speak to him, and I wish I could tell him I want to talk to him more
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that was one thing that left me. And different things you pick up on your travels.
Yeah. Yeah.
I remember being in Italy, and this really elderly Italian woman, all in black with her suitcases, is trying to get to her train.
Hmm.
So I look up and see what train it is. I pick up her suitcase and I take her arm and I walk her over to her train, and she gives me a kiss on both cheeks and thanks me and goes in. I didn't speak much Italian. I could hardly converse with her, but it was an act of kindness that
Right.
was I wasn't expecting to do,
Hmm.
but it was what people around me were doing. It's kind of
Right.
like, in the United States, we have gotten so everything is so fast and everything is
Yeah.
immediate gratification. And what have you done
Yeah.
for me? And over there, it's like, you take your passeggiata, you take your
Mhm.
walk, your nice quiet walk, and
Right.
what's it, el dolce de fare niente, the sweetness of doing nothing. I probably
Mm.
butchered it, but that's
Mm.
kind of how you need to start living. And after so many trips, that's kind of started to sink in.
Gotcha.
And started to relate. And even moving to Florida from New Jersey, I had to slow down.
Slow down.
I had to slow down. I had to
Hmm.
constantly apologize to people and say, "I'm very sorry. I just moved from the north."
Right. And they're like, oh, understood. Say no more.
Bless your heart.
Bless your heart. Yeah, that's what that would be the comment from the South. Yeah,
Yeah, bless your heart.
that's the
Uh,
response.
yeah. So, yeah, but it's just, there's things I've learned, I think, everywhere we've traveled. There's
That's great.
experience I've taken
Yeah.
uh, and gained from. I don't want to say taken because that's like you're not giving anything back.
Right.
I've
Right.
gained from it. And by me gaining from it, I have been able to give something to other people.
Understood. Understood completely. So, how can the listeners access your blog and follow you in your culinary adventures and discoveries?
Well, I am askchefdennis.com. It's
Okay.
pretty simple. On all social media, I am Ask Chef Dennis. And
Awesome.
if you Google Chef Dennis, I should fill up the first couple of pages. There might be an occasional other Chef Dennis out there, but it'll be mostly me because I'm the one that makes the most posts, that makes the most noise.
All right. We will definitely make sure that we have direct links in the episode show notes to your blog, to your website, and we'll definitely make sure the listeners have it at their disposal to follow your blog as they're listening to this wonderful, wonderful conversation. Chef Dennis Littley, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I really, really appreciate you, sir. And hey, I'd love to have you back on the show in the next 6 to 8 months to share any new travels that you may have had in that time.
Absolutely. I would love to. Like I said, we're heading back to New Jersey and I'm
Hmm.
hoping to get back on the road this fall. Things have kind of settled down and I need
Hmm.
to get out there and start meeting some new people and having some adventures.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Well, we can't wait to hear your next adventures, Dennis. Thank you again, man, for coming on the show. It's been really, truly a pleasure.
My pleasure, Aubrey. Thanks for having me.
All right. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and listening. And look, if you know someone who is, say, down on their luck, maybe going through some really tough struggles, dark days of despair, maybe it's a loved one, maybe it's a coworker, maybe it's a good friend, they just don't seem to know or have any idea where to turn or who to turn to. I humbly ask that you please share this show with them because on the road to rediscovery, we want our listeners to know two things. Number one, there's always hope. And number two, you are not alone. You're never alone. The road to rediscovery, it's a movement, a revolution. And guess what? You are now part of it. We're all roadies on this journey of life, and it sure feels good having you on the road with me. Thanks again for listening. We'll chat again soon. We really hope you enjoyed this episode of The Road to Rediscovery. We'd love to hear from you. Shoot us an email at roadtorediscoverypodcast@gmail.com and leave us any questions or comments you may have. The Road to Rediscovery is an AJ Shark production.